Hello, members of Midnight TCG. This is Midnight Fox coming to you this week with the Competitive Edge podcast. This week we have Jinzaki recording. We have Genzo on the mic. Say hello.
Howdy.
We have Nomad this week.
Hey guys.
And we have Kyo.
Morning.
So we have a few new voices and a couple old ones. This week we're going to be discussing fairies. Kind of figure it's October, Halloween, so let's stick with some mythical creatures. So our first order of business on fairies would be to kind of discuss what are our favorite fairies. So I guess starting out with myself, and I hate to take the steam from everyone across all the rest of the podcast, so I'm going to go with just personal favorites, not your meta favorites this week. Some of them might tie over into meta, but one of my favorites in the fairy archetype in itself is Zeta Reticulant. I like his ability in a removal deck. Find it quite useful. Getting to summon those EVA tokens every time a card's removed. So Zeta Reticulant, he's a little off base there and doesn't see as much play, but there was a pretty broken combo a few formats back with him. Athena. Athena's definitely one of my favorites. I like the fact she's easily summoned with Valhalla. You can get rid of your smaller monsters and summon out a beater. And whenever you do, you get to burn your opponent for 600 points. So not only do you get to beat them down with a bigger monster, but you also get to burn them for 600. So Athena's definitely a top fave. And more recently, I'm going to leave Honest to the side because we all know everybody likes him and Christian, all them. Definitely Shockmaster. I don't like to use him in games a lot. I do keep him in the extra deck. But I do find the cost of 3 overlay units a little painful if played at the wrong time. But definitely the ability to pick an area of the field and lock it down. As long as you have an idea of what your opponent is playing, Shockmaster can definitely be a game changer. But definitely not one I pull out, not a card I pull out in game one because I want to see what my opponent's playing first. But that would probably round out my top 3 favorite fairies. So with that, I'll pass it on to Genzo.
So we're doing favorites. You took my favorite, which is Zeta Reticulant. I really like the guy. I really like just that effect and how you can build a deck that's kind of like macro, but not. Karma Cut and Zeta Reticulant and the Vanguard is really fun. As far as other fairies, not a big fairy guy. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Eudora. Cloudians, I really like the Cloudian archetype. Not so much that since Fishboard Blaster's gone, but I still like them. And the Dark Lords. I'd say that would be my favorite, I guess. 2 are archetypes and then the other is single monster, but that's mine.
Nomad?
I guess speaking of those Dark Lords, I'm gonna have to go with Dark Lord Dorado as one of my favorites. I ran him along with Dark Valkyria in a deck of mine that spun a couple years off and on actually, with those guys in Dark Creator and Dark Arm Dragon, and just a very fun deck. And I like how they're kind of like evil versions of existing cards, and they were kind of fun to play around with.
Now you're going to make me have to look back through because I completely forgot about those, and now I'm going to want to build a deck around them again. Thank you.
Well, you could. I mean, like Dark Lord Dorado for one, I find is really cool because he's a 2800, and you can discard a dark monster to Regeki your opponent. And in the end phase, he'll destroy himself. But I mean, if you've gotten rid of their whole field and you're attacking for 28 at least, then he's pretty much accomplished his goal. And if you book a Moon him or something, or you know, then he doesn't have to go and die. And Valkyrie is pretty neat too. What you do is you have her as like a Gemini monster. So on her own, she's only an 1800 attack monster. If you normal summon her again, you can add a special spell counter to her. I think it's just a regular spell counter actually, and then you can remove that spell counter and destroy any monster on the field. So it's kind of like Exiled Force if you had her on the field before, or if you're waiting a turn. I'd usually summon her just with Call of the Haunted, or just as a beater, and then force my opponent to react against her. When I had almost no investment to play it. Other than that pair, I guess Honest is one of my favorites. I like Vanity's Ruler as a tech in Frog Monarchs. And then Meteon the Time Lord is something that I've been wanting to explore a lot recently.
You know, you spoke of Dark Valkyria, and she was definitely one of my staples. I'm trying to remember the exact monster. The dragon monster.
Well, there's a Custodian Emperor Dragon. You mean him? It's Gemini.
No, he's the fusion monster that gave all of your Geminis their effects.
Yes, Super Alloy Beast Raptinus.
Yes, Super Alloy. Yes, that was when I ran a Gemini deck, and the ability to Dragon's Mirror into that. Geminis, on their own, with Reptinus, can be a force to be reckoned with. But yeah, she's definitely, if you're a Gemini player, she's definitely a good staple in a Gemini deck.
And it's sad because I can't even run that deck anymore because Future Fusion was pretty important. Like, I would Future Fusion a couple of her in the graveyard, and it wasn't even really about the Raptinus coming out. It was more about getting a couple of her in the graveyard to fuel either Creator or Dark-Arm Dragon, or even like Monsterborn, something like that. And then if I could keep things going a couple turns, I would then get that 22/22 monster, which would also help my my Vals get their effects. So now with Future Fusion banned, I guess we'll pass it over to Kaio here and see what he's playing with.
The only thing I know about fairies is nowadays the Hero of Perfection, which most people not running it anymore. Agent would be the other one. My thought on Agent is that they are very fast to moving and they have a lot of removal. But as similar to Dark War, if you just sign Light Embracing Mirror, Agent is kind of useless.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's that bad. I mean, you're still having a pretty strong attack of all your monsters, and you're running removal too, right? I mean, especially for Game 2, and especially at locals, when you realize that, okay, if someone has a memory of you playing Agents for a couple weeks, and they know that you're one of the better players, especially if you're one of the guys who beat them a lot, then you're going to be more prepared for it, won't you?
Yeah.
For Game 2?
Well,
I mean,
I'll tell you, six monsters, if you're either a agent or a Herald player, that are, before we get into Broken, because I really don't want to spend a whole lot of time on them, but the combo of Gelen Duo and Marshmelon, the ability to not be destroyed, and with Marshmelon at 3, and Gelen Duo's never been limited or anything.
yeah.
I mean, that's definitely something to think about. The fact that you have 6 monsters that are fairies that cannot be destroyed by battle. The only way Marshmallow gets destroyed is with a card effect, and the only way Gelen Duo is either by card effect or by your opponent being able to damage you.
That
So
would
Well,
be
yeah, but
nice.
definitely something to think about.
it's any kind of damage too. So like
Mm-hmm.
I think even if through like effect damage or burn damage, that never really happens though. It's more so just being careful about having other monsters in attack mode, and if they get over your big guy by let's say 300 damage, then you also lose your
Oh,
Glenduo.
The only
But
forget about
unfortunate thing is
the
good
fool.
luck trying to get a hold of 3 Gelen Duos.
Yeah.
I think Ginzo was trying to say something here, and we cut him off.
Oh,
Yeah, there's
sorry.
actually nine fairies. Marshmallow, Galenduro, and Arcana 40 the Fool.
Yes,
That can be destroyed by battle.
fool. If you want to run all 9 of them, which you
Oh,
probably
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
but you've got options for him though.
Probably don't.
I liked Fool because you could summon him with Nova Summoner in defense mode and get your coin toss in effect too.
Really?
Oh, listen. Now
Yeah,
Nomad's
yeah.
he's getting an idea for final countdown. 9 cards
Well,
to
it's not
stall.
really an idea. It's more something I ran at Nationals in '09. But yeah, I'll sure take credit for it again. I'm cool with that.
Fairies are definitely a good way. They're definitely a good archetype for stalling. I mean, just the bit like like you mentioned, the Nova Masters being able to search, Shining Angels or Searchers. You've got your Gelen Duo, Marshmallow, Arcana, the Fool, all that stall available in Fairies. Yeah, it's definitely, if you want it to go that way, it's a good stall deck. If you want it to go into something like a Final Countdown deck.
I don't know though because I mean like with Final Countdown, I've found that if I have stuff like Nova Summoners, it's really inconsistent overall. Because I don't really have as much of a guarantee that I'm gonna get that protection if I'm setting an Nova Summoner opposed to having like all the scrap scarecrows or the battle faders or even like so I mean if you have the roars and wabakus and frozen souls,
Well,
like you have enough cards overall anyway, it'll buy you a turn at least.
I mentioned the Novas and the Angels just for the searchability,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
the ability to have 9 stallers in one deck, I mean, it's beautiful.
And Reaper's also at 3 too, if you want something that has a bit more utility overall. Um, although, like for me, I can't really run Spirit Reapers a whole lot because like half my locals is Dark World, so it's I usually try and avoid Reaper. But for overall gameplay, especially in other areas or like higher level events where Dark World isn't going to be very popular.
That must be redundant.
I didn't catch you there, Ginzo.
No, either did I.
Oh, I was just mentioning that 3 Marshmallow, 3 Galenduro, 3 Arcana 40 Fool, 3 Spirit Reaper. That would just be almost redundant. You'd be able to defend yourself, but you're not going to be able to get much done.
Well, I mean, you could do wave motion cannons and that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
kind of troll that way.
But
Troll
then
that way
means
like a fox.
MST beats your deck by itself.
Or troll that way like a Nomad when he's playing Poisonous Winds in a wind tournament.
Hey man, I made a meta call
Very
and I ran with it.
intelligent. Very good.
It's sad though because I never drew Zone with a Spirit, and that was like originally what I built my deck around somewhat. Because I'm like, yeah, it's a monster that I can contribute with Ryza, and it won't be affected by winds, and it also does burn damage, and I don't know. It was
Well,
fun.
with that, we'll move on to Broken Fairies. Definitely the top of my list as far as a Broken Fairy would be Archlord Christia. Her only real downfall comes in the fact that she does have certain conditions that have to be met in the graveyard, but she continually gets pushed back on the top of your deck. So if you keep your field in your graveyard at a level area, for the most part, your opponent's not going to be able to get rid of that Christian because you're just going to keep drawing it. Definitely honest. Hence why he sits at 1. He supports any light monster, and the ability to blow all that attack back at your opponent is a beautiful thing, and one of the reasons he sits where he's at right now, unfortunately. Other than that, I mean, Konami brought off Marshmallow because I think to 3, mostly because people forget about him. I mean, that's kind of why I do the Forbidden reviews. You never know what they're going to decide to do at Konami. And sometimes they just like to troll us, and they wait until duelists forget about cards before they release them to unlimited status or semi-limited, or just take them off the ban list like Tsukiyomi. People never saw that coming off when it did. My top 3, possibly broken. If you can pull off the right combo and get 3 monsters, definitely rounding it off, Shockmaster is a game changer. Like I said, if you know what your opponent's running, and you know what area of the field to take out, then you can put your opponent in a very bad spot. And you've got 3 overlay units, so you have 3 turns, provided you have enough protection to keep it on the field. So with that, I'll pass it on to Genzo. What's your top 3 broken?
Nomad, you have something to say? Nomad?
Yeah?
Did you have something to say?
I was just gonna wait my turn, buddy.
Oh, okay. No. I thought you were trying to bump in there for a second. Broken, staple, those words kind of get thrown around a little bit. But for sure, there are some very powerful fairies in the game. From utility cards like Herald of Orange Light and Manju, to control monsters like Bannister of Radiance and Christia. There are a lot of powerful ones. I guess some that haven't been really mentioned, like Ancient Sacred Wyvern. That's a really, really awesome card. Celestia. It's another good fairy. Airnight Parshath. Maybe the game has moved past him somewhat, but is one of my all-time favorite fairies. Actually, I don't know how I didn't mention that before. Other control monsters like Consecrated Light, Nurse Refuge. It's a kind of like a gimmick card, but it's there. Kyrus, I like Kyrus. It's pretty good. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything that's really broken in fairies. I mean, Honest and Christian are pretty nasty, and Master Hyperion's pretty nasty, but I guess those would be my PowerPoint topics for the broken part of this segment. So if you want them, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think someone definitely finished their homework there last night. Yeah, honestly, Christia and arguably Hyperion and Honest, I guess. I do think people complain about Gores way too much, and it summons a fairy, so I think he's game for this argument.
Gore's plug.
What?
Gore's plug.
Oh yeah, Gore's plug. Always fear the Gores.
Gores technically a fairy too.
What about Gores?
He's technically a fairy too, because he summoned fairy.
Well, he's a fiend himself, but yeah, like when you summon a token of the equal attack and defense, what damage you've taken, he brings a fairy, and I guess I don't know. I think you covered all this already, other than like I say, Christia and arguably with Hyperion and Celestia, because they're kind of like double monarchs. So yeah, there's not really a whole lot more I can say about broken fairies. And I didn't even know the Shockmaster was a fairy, to be honest.
Before I even toss in my last thought, I'll let Keo. Let's see what his list is before I toss in my last thought as one possible broken one.
I don't think I have I don't think I did my homework. That's for sure. Just wasn't expect to wake up this early, so
This
you
early,
can
it's
go
like
ahead.
midnight for most of us, and you're like,
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
1 o'clock for me.
Well, you can go ahead, Fox.
I would argue to say Dark Lord Asmodeus. The fact that when he's destroyed, he summons the two tokens, one that cannot be destroyed by battle and one that can't be destroyed by effects. Those two tokens can be pretty nasty in a game too. I found myself against Dark Lord Asmodeus, and when he left the field, having those two little 1800 and 1200 monsters knock me out of the game. So arguably, I'd give him a small spot in there.
He's a pretty good monster.
And so, I guess that takes us to kind of where we see the game moving with fairies and possible decks. For me, I mean, I was excited to see Marshmelon at 3. Not as much so as my son, who is a Marshmelon fan, but definitely his ability to flip and do 1,000 damage. So burn and his stall ability all rolled into one makes him a great monster. And as we see more people starting to look back at stall and holding out your opponent, I'm hoping that Marshmelon finds his way into some burn decks, and then, of course, once he becomes a staple again, then Konami will limit or semi-limit or ban him on us again. We know this from history.
it was banned. When was Marshmallow banned?
He was never banned, but he was limited.
Yeah, I think even like I think he was one of the first cards when he was at 1 in Japan, and the moment that he came out here, we had like a special inclusion of him. Like we never had like half a format of him being at 3. Unless I'm mistaken here, I could be. I just remember it.
I don't think you are. I think you're
But
remembering correctly.
Okay.
agents, people are definitely going back to that. It's kind of right now in the current meta. I look for them. I look for Earth to get hit again because he is pretty broken. Possibly, you did mention Hyperion. He's an easily summoned fairy. Right now, I think fairies are an overlooked deck that are very overpowered with Valhalla. And, we mentioned all of the stall that's available in fairies. But not only stall, but there's so many beaters available in fairies. Take, for example, like I mentioned earlier, Athena and her ability to pop off a little small fairy and get out a big beater and do some burn damage. Overlooked, and I think that as some of the top tier decks right now, which has kind of actually been all over the place. I'll give Konami kudos. With this ban list, you haven't seen the same deck top at every regional or big tournament. There has been a lot more variety with the way they've changed this list around. But as some of the higher tier decks start to slouch off, I look for fairies to step up in the game because if people really do take a look at them, they are a very powerful archetype. It just depends on if you know your cards, you know how to support them, and you have an idea of what your engine's going to look like in the end. So with that, I'll pass it on to Genzo.
The future of fairies, I guess, will be the same as it is for the present, unless they come out with a new fairy, archetype or something. I just think agents are the upper echelon of what fairies can do. I always like Bountiful Artemis, so counter decks like that can exist. But generally fairies outside
Are you finished with yours, Genzo?
the
Faerie
filler
Nomad?
nomad.
Um, honestly, I guess I'm gonna have to echo that last part about agents being, I guess, our main promise of all the fairy stuff here. Other than that, we have Herald, which I think is something that we could easily see come back even on a smaller scale, like at a couple of regionals or at like a YCS. If someone makes a really good meta call about them, or even if we have like a new introduction of a bunch of fairies and Christia is a card that works in them, I could see Christia making a comeback again. But other than that, and possibly Honest in like a light based deck, which wouldn't even really be a fairy theme. I'm pretty much only hoping here, and it's a shame because like if you look at all the support cards that we have, it's a lot of power, a lot of defense, a lot of the counterability and variability. It's just making those pieces consistent and appealing enough, I think,
I think that
to
what is
our.
appealing about fairies is the fact that you have so many ways in a deck that you can go with them. You can go negation, you can go stalling, you can go beat stick, you can go any given direction in the game. And there's support available. It's just right now, other than the big names, Christia decks and agent decks, they're so overlooked that all the other combos that are available in the game, I'm just waiting for someone to step it up and go in a different direction other than agents or Christia decks. Because
Like, what
they're
else is
really
there though? Like, short of maybe something like with Nova Summoners and maybe having that as kind of a mini engine, I'm really not seeing anything right now. Well, you know what though? I should backtrack here because I know Ginzel brought up. He brought up a really strange and cool card in our single card discussion area. If you guys have seen it, it's Arcana Force the World.
World.
Yeah, it's where you summon it, you toss a coin, and if you toss heads during your end phase, you send two monsters you control to the graveyard, and you skip your opponent's turn. And if you hit, I think, tails during your end phase, your opponent adds top card from their graveyard back to their hand. And I had to laugh because I remember when that card was kind of new, there were a lot of people in my area trying to run that deck incredibly badly, and it was hilarious to watch. But upon a bit more, I guess, pondering and thinking and I guess positivity on my end, I'm kind of hoping that there'll be something else that I can do. Um, because I know Treeborn Frog was brought up, but then you can't really run a huge backfield. And then there was a lot of fairy stuff that got brought up too, and I don't know. Do any of you guys have any ideas to make the world, I guess, a more up-to-date possibility?
We're just
Yeah,
speaking about the world and something that it offers fairies because, again, you're sitting there trying to think of newer ways to play fairies that can compete with, say, I have agents here. It's the best way I can run fairies. What else could I possibly do that can offer me the ability to win if I play smartly? I think Valhalla offers fairies a way to be kind of like a Malefic deck. Granted, they can't drop Malefic Cyber End Dragon, activate random removal, and steal the game, but they can deal, or they can still do pretty aggressive things like Malefic can do. I just find, and I guess something that cut off in my last comment was that I find that fairies, while they can do a lot of different things, I feel that the majority of fairies are just utility cards for other decks. Like Dimension Alchemist and the random Chaos deck, to Manju and Ritual decks.
That's a really good point. And even if you look to Honest, I mean, he's one of our more popular fairies. And again, he's not your main card. He's, like you say, your support card and your enabler to the other ones. And I guess if you look back in their lore, that fits, right? I mean, you look at having a fairy who's usually a supporter. He's not or she's not, like your Peter Pan, right? Like your Peter Pan is the kid, and then your Tinkerbell. Your Tinkerbell is that supporter for him, and what kind of gets him off to the dance there. And
Yeah, it wasn't, with Valhalla, that was basically Call of the Mummy for fairies, and the release of Christia and the Agents deck with Hyperion and Earth. I mean, that's really where fairies came into their own. Other than that, before that, they were mostly supporters or used for chaos food. That was mainly it. So, in some ways, Konami makes me so mad, but in some ways, they have been working a lot on reviving older archetypes, older things that people don't think of. And I hope, I'm going to mention this again, I think I mentioned it in Wing Beasts. We want new Harpy cards. So, if you happen to be listening, new Harpy cards.
Harpies aren't fairies.
I know they
but
aren't
they're
fairies.
wings, and
They're
but they're
wing
women
beasts.
and they're fairies in a sense.
That's just my plug for Harpies because I'm a Harpy fan.
Well, I think we all are, right?
No.
Ginzo doesn't like harpies?
No, he doesn't.
Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad at all.
What about you, Keo?
They are fun to play with. Literally.
What?
That's kind of random.
Okay.
I totally missed that.
One last thing. I think it's important. I want to say it was Fox who mentioned Call the Mummy for zombies. There's a card that I never ran in any zombie deck that I've ever made since I started playing the game. But I think Valhalla stands alone because it is pretty much the same card. But the fact that Hecatus, pitch it from your hand, search Valhalla to your hand, that's something else that's really good about the fairies
Hecatrice.
and trying to do something outside of Agents.
Hecatrice actually searches out Valhalla.
Yeah. I said that, right?
Oh yeah. So you have up to 3 chances of drawing it essentially, and Hecatrice is also like a 4-star. I think it's 1500 attack, so it's not a useless card if you draw it later on.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've already got a Valhalla in your control, you can special summon something and normal summon something else, and possibly you forward that into an XYZ or even just more damage.
Sure.
And there's always the ability with Hecatrice to go with a Chaos build, It's a discard, you get to bring a field spell, and if you're running a mixture of light and dark fairies, which is very plausible, you mentioned Dark Valkyria, you can special summon her with Valhalla and use your normal summon to gain her effect.
That's true.
I mean, it is very realistic to run Chaos Fairies. Like I said, there's so many things that are overlooked that could really break the format. If somebody would take the time to not look at, this is what's being played here, this is what's being played here, and focus on a certain archetype like that, but a lot of us have our favorite cards, so...
There is though, like the Dark Lords. If you just take when I run Dark Lords, I don't really run. Well, I run Asmodeus and Superbia. That's it. I run 3 Asmodeus, 2 Superbia, 2 Dark Lord Christia, 3 Hecatrice. So there's your light and dark together, because you're gonna run Honest. to back up the maybe a summoned Hecatrice or Arthur Tricia. So there's the chaos in itself. And you can run Spirit Reapers as just generic dark monsters or tour guides if you want. So you can do it. It's just whether or not it can compete at the highest level.
True. Well, that kind of in cases what we're going to talk about with fairies tonight. Definitely keep an eye out. We're talking about possibly switching up our Flash tournaments to Thursdays. Tuesdays don't seem to be working out so well. So possibly thinking, look out on Tuesday or Thursday. I'll surprise you. If you listen to the podcast, it can happen either day. And we'll see how the turnout is. Whichever day I decide, we'll take it from there. But just to round off things, want to go over our Duel Against Cancer, Duel for a Cure. We are starting to pick up more boards, more supporters. Definitely, if you listen, go out, tell your friends. We have the tournament. That's the Duel for a Cure. It's a $5 entry. It's paid to the banner at the bottom, the Duel for a Cure banner, and that goes directly to the Relay for Life. It's going for a good cause. The prizes are a Insector Centipede mat for first place and a Calcujotter for second. And we have our raffle against cancer, which that will be held on the same day. $2 per entry. Got the chance to win things like we have an Insector Hornet mat. We have Calcujotter. We have a, speaking of fairies, Lost Sanctuary structure deck going out as a prize. Our very own Jinzaki offering up a Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End IOC First Edition Secret Rare as a prize. We've also got some other cards from IN and TCG Nation. And more people coming on board with some more prizes, so definitely it's something. It's $2 per entry, and you got the chance to win some cool prizes. If you're just broke, spread the word or go down and watch me embarrass myself in my Gangnam Style video. Give some likes because my staff have to pay, depending on how many likes it has by the end of the month. Or you can even go down to our literature section and donate and tell a story. Just tell everyone how cancer has affected you or a loved one, because to be honest, it is a disease that touches everyone's lives. And we do believe in supporting good causes here on our site. So definitely help us spread the word. We're trying to do as much as possible by the end of the month.